Good morning once again. Let me, of course, take this opportunity to thank my senior colleague and sister, Prime Minister of Barbados, for her excellent presentation. Put your hands together for her once again. Let me recognize the acting Prime Minister of this great country who is here this morning and led us off. Let me also take this opportunity to once again recognize Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Amor Motley, my sister, my brother and fellow Prime Minister of Grenada, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. But allow me also to recognize the former leader of Nigeria, who is here with us and gave his beautiful words that were poignant and most importantly relevant for today. And allow me to recognize also President Orama from the African Bank, who has been working tirelessly hard to ensure that global Africa becomes a reality. Just as a backdrop, the concept of global Africa started many, many decades ago. If we are to remember the words of His Most Excellent, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, when he said that Africa for Africans, home and abroad. We also want to recognize, as I've started, the role played by the diaspora in the liberation of Africa. So all of what we seek to do has to be placed in a particular concept, has to be placed in its historical significance, so that we recognize that this coming together has not just started. It is a continuation of a great journey of, as was said by P.M. Motley, a vase that was broken, now being reunited. Just to take you back a little bit more, and we stand on holy ground here, as I would call it, sacred ground, in Algeria, a country that fought for its liberation and independence from colonization. But if we were to go back to the Caribbean, the diaspora of Africa, in the 18th century, the late 1700s, when ex-slaves or slaves in the person of Toussaint Louverture and his excellent Dessalines defeated a colonial power that was France, declared independence, so it was not given to us. Blood was shed for us to be able to be free people. That spirit of liberation that started right there in one of the richest colonies for European power, that spirit spread throughout the rest of the Caribbean and spread all the way through Africa. We are one people. And as a result of that, Toussaint Louverture, who was then captured later on by Napoleon and sent to France, where he died in prison. But the spirit of liberation had been planted. And even though you would have taken out an individual, you could not have taken out the concept, the idea of true liberation. And right after him came Dessalines, who defeated the French right in the Caribbean. It's a similar history right here. I would also like to extend that in 1945, with the Pan-African Congress that was held in Manchester, and I mentioned it yesterday, I mentioned one name, Kwame Nkrumah, but there were others at that meeting when it was being led by a Caribbean intellectual in the person of George Padmore. There was, of course, His Excellency, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya. There was, of course, His Excellency later on of Malawi. There was Amy Garvey. There were representatives from the United States of America in the person of W.E.B. Du Bois. And I'm saying all of this to show that that Pan-African meeting, which was held in 1945 in Manchester of London, where the concept of decolonization took root so that it should go into action. And it was declared then that Africa and people of African descent must be free. And history speaks the rest. The liberation of Ghana, the liberation of Kenya, the liberation of Malawi, and that took root throughout the whole of Africa, and of course, on the ground on which I stand is no exception. That is to say, that when an idea is born among our people, that idea will spread from the Americas to the Caribbean, to Africa itself, and around the world. And the idea that is being spread today is the idea of global Africa, where Africa, those on the continent and those on the diaspora, we form that whole vase, as our sister declared. That vase is being put together once again. And so in that spirit, this has brought us to why this is relevant today. It is relevant because we have taken it in stages. Stages from fighting against slavery, fighting against post-slavery, fighting against colonization, fighting for independence and liberation. And today, the next chapter in our journey is to fight for economic sovereignty. And so, as I wrap up today, because there are other speakers, I want to make it abundantly clear that what we seek to do in lifting global Africa is really part of a long story. But our story is also connected to humanity, because in the lifting of Africa and its peoples will automatically result in the upliftment of humanity as a whole. We cannot see ourselves as a fragment and separated from humanity. We cannot see ourselves as a part and, of course, ignore the whole. But what we are simply saying is that for humanity to advance and reach that glorious place that we all aspire to reach, that Africa and African people must take their rightful place among the peoples of this world. And so these efforts are tangible efforts to connect all of our people. And as was said by our sister, Mia Moore-Motley, that people follow the money. That is true, in the sense that there has to be tangible benefits of what we seek to do. In a sense that this global trade and this reconnection can bring, of course, benefits to our people. Lift our people out of abject poverty. Allow our people to flourish culturally and otherwise, including economically. And that is why it is important that we do what we are doing. I would like to call that as African peoples, that where there are conflict, that we seek to end this conflict. For having conflict and the destruction of life will not advance our cause as global Africa. That there where there are division, that is matched by dialogue, so that through dialogue we can resolve the issues that we have as a continent and as a people. I therefore call that we cannot expect anyone from outside to resolve our issues. We have to be those who would lead to resolve our own issues and challenges. And I finally say that the rise of global Africa, that seed has been planted, that cannot be stopped. So therefore, the train has left the station. It is moving along. And I ask all of us, in our various capacities, in our various aptitudes, in our various utterances, in our various writings and work, that we get on the train, which will finally see economic sovereignty to the benefit of all our peoples. Thank you very much.